Hello? 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 Anybody there? Oh, hello there. Hadn't seen you in a while, didn't recognize you. Welcome back to Peregrine Prude. I'm your rambling host, Colby Matthews. It's been a little while, like a year and a half, since I said in my next video I was going to cover a book by my favorite author, G.K. Chesterton. And that's what I'm going to do today, about a year and a half later. Don't know how many of these I'm going to put out, but it's always in the back of my mind. It's just a matter of gumption, really, to be honest. I want to do them, but sometimes I just don't have the gumption. However, I still enjoy doing it, and I want to bring them to you as much as I have the gumption to do so. So today we're gonna at least begin looking at What's Wrong with the World by G.K. Chesterton. First of all, I want to say how impressed I am that Chesterton was able to condense the world's... Of course he did. This is not exhaustive, obviously, but I'm impressed that he was able to at least give a nice overview of what's wrong with the world. Of course, this was written in the early 1900s. I could probably find out real quick. Hang on just a second. Probably should have done that in preparation. 1910. This was written in 1910. But what's so cool about Chesterton's writings, he's one of those very prescient authors. Prescient, I think I've heard it pronounced both ways. Authors that he foretells, he kind of foresees a lot of what is coming down the pike. And even though he wrote in the early 1900s up into the 1930s, when he passed away, the themes and the trajectory of his writings are very, very applicable to all the problems that we're facing today. And I think that's one reason they kind of call him the prophet of common sense. I think that's a pretty good nickname for old G.K. Gilbert Keith Chesterton. G.K. Chesterton. Of course, he was a Catholic, and through reading Chesterton, I've come to admire Catholicism more than I ever thought I would, to be honest. I could never become a Catholic. There are issues that I cannot reconcile. There are definitely irreconcilable differences that I could never become a Catholic. However, I think perhaps more than your average Protestant, I feel a kindred with Catholics more than I ever thought I would, and perhaps more than most Protestants do. And I think that has a lot to that's a good testimony for Chesterton's writings. There are definitely things that I don't agree with. Of course, there are things that I don't agree with in my own church, in other Protestant denominations. There are things I don't agree with. But I think Catholicism, at the core, it has it right. At the core, there are legions of true believers within Catholicism. It's not a cult. It is a part of the Catholic, small c, lowercase c, church. I think I've said it before, but I am a Catholic with a small c, meaning embracing the church, the ecumenical church, the church globally. But I'm certainly not a Catholic, capital C, meaning Catholic in the way we normally use it. but I am a Catholic, small c, and I recognize that many Catholics, capital C, are in the church. They are brothers and sisters in Christ. And of course, just like people who profess to be believers in any denomination of any sort, you have people that abuse things, that abuse certain doctrines, and people that just are in it just to be a part of it, but don't really believe. So you have that in Catholicism, you have that in Protestantism. I don't even like the word. I know I'm going to get to this book eventually. Kind of going off. They do call I am the rambling host. So, and I even take issue with the word Protestant. Of course, we protested against the abuses of the Catholic Church, and that's where Protestants get their name. But I don't like. I think that's a bit of an antiquated term. Of course, I'll still use it, but in British Christianity, the history of Great Britain, you have the Church of England, which itself broke away from the Catholic Church during Henry VIII's reign for political reasons mostly. But anyways, you have the Church of England, or Anglicanism, and then the people who broke away from the Church of England, they were called nonconformists, and the Baptists and other denominations of that ilk were called nonconformists, non-conforming to the Church of England, which was itself a Protestant denomination. I say all that to kind of say that I would prefer to use the term nonconformist. However, that hits the mark too. Or I mean, that misses the mark too. Because that means that we're just, whatever is popular, whatever people are conforming to, we don't conform to it. But that's not always the case. It's not a matter of conforming or not conforming, it's a matter of what's the truth. If most people are conforming to the truth, well, I hope I would be a conformist. If most people are conforming to a lie, to something false, I hope I would be a nonconformist. So I think both the word Protestant and nonconformist, they both are lacking in ways. They're historically embedded, and to use them now doesn't really they don't seem like the best words. So I think the best word is just Christian, right? I'm a Christian. Yeah, I go to a Baptist church. Yeah, there are certain doctrines that I believe are totally true, and others that I maybe don't know, maybe kind of gray on. I could see both arguments for both sides, somewhat legitimate, and then there are other doctrines that are just completely wrong, but at the same time, I would not break fellowship with somebody over them. And then there are obviously some doctrines, such as those found in the so-called Church of Latter-day Saints and Jehovah's Witnesses, that they do deserve cult status as we use it today. The word cult as we use it today, status, because they are so far out of line that you can't really consider them within the bosom of the church, unfortunately. Alright, so to crack this book open, let's get going with a few quotes and a few comments. To get started, I think I mentioned this once before as well, but Chesterton wrote this book, and I think the original title was going to be "What's Wrong?" Just "What's Wrong?" Stop. And he said he was he was having some friends over one time at his house, and he said that he told, and this is in the book somewhere. I don't know. I'm not going to find it. But he said that he was going to go up to his study on the second floor of his home, and he was going to go work on what's wrong. And of course, I don't know, it's kind of that humor, like he kind of realized, oh, they probably thought I meant I'm going to go do what's wrong. So he kind of edited the title to "What's Wrong with the World" to make it clear that he's not doing what's wrong. He's not. Yeah, anyways, that didn't go off like I planned it, but I think you guys get the idea. Okay, first quote. A little rough here. Been a year and a half. Not that I was super smooth before this. But exactly the whole difficulty, in our opinion, but exactly the whole difficulty in our public problems is that some men are aiming at cures which other men would regard as worse maladies, are offering ultimate conditions as states of health, which other would uncompromisingly call states of disease. So, I mean, we see this so many areas of life where people think that a certain condition, a certain lifestyle is the healthy lifestyle, but it is actually a worse malady than before. Yeah, I won't elaborate on that. I'm sure you guys have plenty of examples in your head. Here Chesterton says, and this is coming off of that story I just related, I have called this book "What is Wrong with the World," and the upshot of the title can be easily and clearly stated. What is wrong is that we do not ask what is right. Good point. Good point. Matter of fact, a lot of people, they don't even believe in universal objective morality anymore. They think that whatever they say is right, that's what's right. Whatever they say is wrong, that's what's wrong. That's what's wrong. And that even those things can change over time, depending on one's feelings and one's situations. And so, trying to make gods of ourselves instead of recognizing God as He reveals Himself in His Word. An act can only be successful or unsuccessful when it is over. If it is to begin, it must be in the abstract right or wrong. Good point, right? So, success or unsuccess can only be determined once something is over. And I must say, even that's hard. You know, number one, when do you know when something is over? How can you tell when something is over anymore? Especially when it comes to government programs, government initiatives, any kind. I mean, when do you know when something is? It's just like keeps rolling and rolling. And then even if something is over, it often takes a long time to see whether it was actually successful or not. So, I mean, there are certain things that you can tell immediately, but often it takes a long time to see the effects of an act, and sometimes you will never see them, and you'll only become aware of the consequences of the success or unsuccess in eternity. But if it is to begin, it must be in the abstract, right or wrong. That's right. So whenever you come to a decision, this way or that way, we're going to do things this way, we're going to do things that way, Am I going to behave this way? Am I going to behave that way? We have to be discriminating. And I like using that word, discriminating. Um, and one of my, okay, let me finish this train of thought first. We have to discriminate between what is the right course of action. Is this the right way for me to go? And we have to be pragmatic, right? I mean, pragmatism is never in a vacuum. Pragmatism means it's the idea of like doing what works. Like whatever works is the right course of action. And as Christians, yeah, pragmatism is not against. It's not contrary to the Christian lifestyle or Christian ethics, because we know that what God commands us to do is what works in the long run. In the long run, right? What he wants us to do, like obeying God, is what is good for us. It's what's good for others. It's what pleases God. It's good for everybody. Yeah, it may not be easy right now. It may bring us suffering. It may bring us death. It may bring us and our families death. It could, yeah. But what is that compared to obeying God, really? Because we are, as Christians, we are supposed to have the eternal perspective. We're not supposed, I mean, I'm preaching to myself more than anybody who's probably listening to this, but you know, we're not to seek, nothing wrong with it, but we're not comfort and worldly pleasure and security. That's not supposed to be our ultimate aim. Yeah, if those come by the wayside, of course, let's do that. Okay, I mean we got to be responsible. We got to protect our families and be, but obeying God is first and foremost. Whether that means being in danger or not, whether that means bringing attacks upon ourselves or not, obeying God is numero uno. A man who thinks much about, oh yeah, let me go back to that word, discrimination. Of course, to discriminate just means to choose one thing over the other. It means to choose. To discriminate means to choose. They are synonyms. Now, of course, in our common parlance, discrimination has taken on the what's the word? I can't think of the word, but it has come to be associated more with like racial discrimination or gender discrimination or what have you, where it's like a totally negative thing whereby a person does not value this group of people as much as this group of people. Well, yeah, that's a proper application for the word discrimination, because discrimination means to make a choice. It means to choose one thing over the other. So yeah, in that sense of like a racist, they are discriminating against this group of people in favor of this group of people. They are choosing this group of people and not this group of people. So yeah, I mean, but that's a very limited application of the word. The word is much more expansive than that. I mean, you can apply it to anything. I discriminate against mellow yellow, and I prefer Mountain Dew. Now, yeah, I drink mellow yellow if it's happily, if that's all a restaurant has available. But I discriminate against mellow yellow whenever both Mountain Dew and mellow yellow are available. So it's a wonderful word, and I think that we should. My last, I think it was my last master's course. That's one of the reasons why for the delay, the lack of gumption, number one, and also finishing up my master's degree in May of this year, 2024. But in my last course, I was in a conversation with with some classmates about, and I used the word discrimination. I said, there's nothing, there's nothing wrong with the word. There's nothing wrong with discriminating. I mean, we discriminate. I was telling them, don't you know this? You're in the an English program or a education program. Don't you know that discriminate simply means to choose? I mean, so it's like I had to kind of explain to them what the more expansive meaning of the word discriminate means, and I felt silly for having to do that for some master's level students, especially in the programs that we were all in. So, anywho, a man who thinks much about success must be the drowsiest sentimentalist, for he must always be looking back. If he only likes victory, he must always come late for the battle. For the man of action, there is nothing but idealism. This is where this is a common theme with Chesterton's writing, is the necessity of idealism. And you could, with idealism, I think the way he uses it, it can also be interchanged with the word faith or belief, oftentimes in his writing. Because if a person has no ideals, no greatest good to pursue, or greater good to pursue, what's the point in action at all? All action serves ideals, because ideals are the goals that our actions are working towards. And so, and later on, I don't know if it's in this book, probably is, but in Chesterton's other writings, he points out how idealism is really what is practical. Like, idealism is true practicality, because a lot of modern writers, at least modern for him, they make a false distinction between idealism and practice or practicality, or you could say, man, my words are failing me. I just used it earlier. Anyways, this is fun. This is real fun. He make a false distinction between the two, but idealism is really practical. I think you can also make the same analogy between, like, prayer, between prayer and action. Like, prayer isn't some ideal thing divorced from action. Like, prayer is action. Prayer is an action. It is the action of talking to God and to trying to align your will with His, and trying to ask Him for things, ask Him for help, ask Him for wisdom, ask Him for understanding, or whatever, or for help for others, or thanking Him. Like that is action. That is action. And I think also we have also this kind of false distinction between speaking and action. I mean, speaking is an action. Talking is an action. We often say, oh, he can talk the talk, but he can't walk the walk. Now, there is something to that, of course. But the idea is that our talk, the action that is our talk, and the actions that are all of the other actions outside of the action of talking, they should be in alignment. So the problem is whenever this action is not congruent with all the other action that we do in our life. That's the problem. It's not that talking is somehow not an action. It is very much an action. Matter of fact, the tongue is sharper than any double-edged sword, right? Because the tongue can do a lot of damage. But a sword doesn't only do I mean, it does damage, but it's not always offensive. A sword, and also by analogy, the tongue, is also can be a defensive weapon. We often think of shield as the defensive weapon, but it's like a gun. You know, I like guns. I have guns not because I want to go kill people. I have guns because number one, they interest me. I think I always loved weapons. It's a native interest of weapons, but I want to protect my family. If it ever comes to that, I want to be able to protect the people around me, the people I love, even protect innocent bystander if I have, if I have the opportunity against other people who would attack them. So the tongue is sharper than a double-edged sword, and that can also, we have to use it wisely, and it's an action. What we got going on here now? Here's a really good one that I like. There are two things, and two things only, for the human mind: a dogma and a prejudice. The Middle Ages were a rational epoch, an age of doctrine. Our age is at its best a poetical epoch, an age of prejudice. A doctrine is a definite point. A prejudice is a direction. This one is pregnant with application and meaning. Two things and two things only for the human mind: a dogma and a prejudice. A dogma, or a doctrine. He uses doctrine and dogma interchangeably here. It's a fixed point. It's a belief. And it is important to have fixed beliefs that can serve as anchors for our conduct. But a prejudice is based, to be prejudiced means to prejudge, right? It means to have an inclination, to have a judgment inside of yourself beforehand, before you've actually considered the evidence or the situation. And therefore, it is based on feeling. It's based on sentiment. It's based on maudlin fancy. And in today's world, that is what is considered. We've done a complete 180, where nowadays how I feel about something, how I feel about myself, how I feel about you, how we feel is that is the standard by which we should judge things. And so, and that is basically living on prejudice. Now, the people who advocate for that, they would never put it in that way, but that's what it is. If you live based upon your feelings, and that's why he says it's a poetical epoch, because in that sense, poetry as just the flowery expulsion of feelings coming out on paper, or into the ether from your mouth. That is the idea. We are now living in an age of prejudice. That is to say, we are living in an age of one's feelings rule. One's feelings in this moment, not tomorrow's moment, not yesterday's moment, but in this moment now, this moment now, are what determine right and wrong, are the standard of one's morality. How can you have law? How can you have rule of law in a society like that? And I think this is interesting. A prejudice is a direction. Yeah, it is it's a trajectory. It's not a fixed point like a doctrine or a dogma. It's just you're flying out into the abyss, is what it is, because you have nothing to hang on to. You're just so. Let's say a doctrine or a dogma is like the sun, and it has its own gravitational field, right? And we are all bodies, planetary or asteroids or whatever, and we are orbiting this dogma, this sun, because it's a fixed point, and it's pulling us in, and so we stay around it, and we have something to orient ourselves by. We are, we are all these different concentric circles around this fixed dogma, this fixed point, this sun. But if you don't have dogma, if you don't have doctrine that are fixed and solid and anchored, then you have prejudice, and you just go flying out in your prejudiced trajectory into the cold, cold night of space. And if maybe you'll collide with something down the road, it'll send you on a different trajectory, and it's just all random and meaningless and feeling based. Not that there's anything wrong with feelings. Feelings are very important, but we can't be ruled by the feelings. In an ideal world, our doctrines and our feelings are working completely in sync at the same time. That's an ideal world, but that's very rare. That's an ideal life, but that's very rare. And maybe at times we've had that, where our feelings and our thinking, our biblical thinking, are completely in sync, in perfect timing. But in the absence of that perfect alignment, we need to let our biblical thinking guide us, and then our feelings follow. It's when our feelings lead that we get in trouble. And especially if we're not believers. I mean, my goodness, that's, you know. Here's good. This is a good one. It is enough to say that unless we have some doctrine of a divine man, all abuses may be excused, since evolution may turn them into uses. Right? Unless we have some doctrine of a divine man. Now I take this as divine man, doctrine of a divine man. I think of this in two ways. Number one, Jesus Christ. He's a divine man. He's 100% God. He's 100% man. We call that the hypostatic union. He's not 50% God and 50% man. No, he's 100% God and 100% man combined, both at the same time. So there's that aspect of the doctrine of a divine man, the Son of God, the Son of Man. But there's also the doctrine of each human bearing the image of their Creator God. So there is that element of divinity within us. Not that we are gods, not that we are to make ourselves gods, but that our dignity is derived from the fact that we were created by God as a special creation, bearing the stamp of His image. Birds don't have that, dogs don't have that, cats don't have that, ants don't have that. I mean, ants have it, like in your family. Aunt, they have it, probably. But not ants, the six-legged ants on the ground. So unless we have some kind of a doctrine that deals with the divine man, all abuses may be excused, since evolution may turn them into uses. right? For all we know, like if evolution is the way that we came into existence, billions and billions of years, one species, macro evolving into another species, nearly ad infinitum. Um, who's to say that serial killers aren't aiding in the next level of evolution? I mean, who's to say that? Where does morality come from? And a lot of postmoderns, they would say that, oh, it comes, or postmoderns, not moderns, they would say it comes from just the society's mores, society's norms. And yeah, I mean, it does come from that to a degree. What we believe to be morality, it does derive certain things. I would say lesser moralities, non-universal moralities, can come from that. Can come from that. How can anybody say that a serial killer, a serial rapist, serial killer, how can we say that that is wrong if there is no universal moral truth? Like I can say it's wrong because I feel that it's wrong. That just doesn't seem right to me. Yeah, I can say that, and then somebody over here can say, oh yeah, I agree with you, Colby. I don't think people should just be able to go kill people because they have that urge, and then rape them too, and maybe cook their wow. There's a feral cat running across with a dead mouse in its mouth. That was kind of cool. Somebody else may say, hey Colby, I agree with you. I don't feel that is a good thing either. I feel that is not good for society, for somebody to just kill people whenever they have the urge to, and rape them whenever they have the urge to, and maybe cut them up and cook their muscle meat on the George Foreman whenever they want to. That's not good, right? So we can agree on that individually and just say, but if we don't believe in God, if we believe that evolution is the way we got here, then that's just us saying it. Like, it doesn't mean it's really wrong. And why is us saying that is wrong? Like, why is me saying that that's wrong? Why am I right, and why should society operate on the ideas that I think are right, or even the majority in society think are right, that those kinds of behaviors are wrong, whenever you have a serial killer over here saying that, oh, I think I should be able to do this. This is something that gives me pleasure. It's something that I think is actually good for society, to kind of cull out the weak ones in society, the gullible ones in society. So why is a serial killer not? Why can't we respect? Why couldn't we respect his views and his actions and his behavior? Why not? And why aren't his views on morality just as valid as mine? That what he's doing is absolutely reprehensible. That's kind of where we're at. Whenever you don't have dogma or doctrine, or the doctrine of a divine man. So we're going to stop there for now. Got a little bit into it. I'm just going to take this nice and slow. And thank you guys for tuning in. I either apologize or I say you're welcome. That it's been such a long time. I don't know how you guys are taking these, but I enjoy doing it, and getting into it a little bit with G.K. Chesterton. What's Wrong with the World, back in 1910, is still pretty much what's wrong with the world today, but even more so. So thank you for tuning in. camping out here at Delaney Creek Park in Washington County, Indiana right now. It's just such a awesome, there's a big lake out there in front of me. Show that to you guys. Gonna get out there on the kayak here in a little bit. We're staying in this cabin right behind me. Roughing it, really roughing it. So thanks for tuning in. Till next time, out.